to the Oldhammer Podcast, where life meets the mats. My name is Sam. I'm with my good buddy Gordo. How you doing, Gord?
I'm good, man. How are you today, man?
I'm a little tired, but I'm doing all right. Life's good.
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about today?
I think we're gonna be talking about the stand-up or the lack of training in the stand-up in Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, no, that's
Like that big issue,
yeah.
or less of issue now, but it was a bigger issue before. So we can talk about like how things have, changed over the course of time. But I think it's a problem that still persists.
Yeah, for sure. I know that's a issue that's near and dear to your heart. Mine as well. Because I remember during our first sort of instructionals into Jiu-Jitsu, when you brought me over to class, we started on our knees. I think I started probably on my back, but the whole time it was such a foreign world from being on the ground to being on your feet. And I had boxed before, so I was used to being on my feet and moving around, but I was not used to being on the ground, right? But one thing that I think has come to light over recent years is that in jiu-jitsu specifically, if you look at a lot of tournaments, there isn't a lot of transitions between the feet and the ground unless you're kind of playing along, right? Obviously you want to engage, obviously you want to get a dominant position, but I think it goes back to the whole point of, well, are you going to pull guard to get down? Not that pulling guard's a bad thing, that's a totally viable way to do it. But what happens if you pull guard and the person doesn't engage with you? It's just like, never mind, not going to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the whole other problem of, the just stand up rule. Like, are you just going to stand up? So you're trapped in somebody's guard, you stand up, well, you reset to your feet. So now how are you going to get that person back down and get into a dominant position? And from where we started, and we can talk more about that, that was something that was not really taught, that transition. That was more the purview of wrestlers, I feel. And I think today that's less of, but still kind of the case. What are your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts on that is that I definitely think it's like progressed a lot more. But just to give I guess like more information like how it was when we first started. There was like when I first started, I think I started about like a year before you did. There was like zero stand-up training, like absolutely zero. And this was in no gi and gi. It was basic arm drag, take the back, and then like shitty single leg. Or with the gi, it was like grab the collar behind the neck, grab a sleeve, and shake the fucking guy down until he fell down. And if that didn't work, I guess like you basically you fell on top of him or he fell on top of you. It was like pretty bad. And at that time, I think you could have gotten away with like an average like single leg or average blast double in wrestling. Like if that was all you had like in your repertoire for takedowns, you would be okay, because most guys in jiu-jitsu back in the early 2000s, unless they were elite, they weren't like on the local level, they were not training like that. You got some guys that were crossing over from judo, but mainly, and some guys from wrestling, but those guys were like the exception. They were not like the rule. So like you'll go in the comp and you make it to finals. They have 4 or 5 matches. You might meet one wrestler or might meet one judo guy, and then if you didn't and you just happened to be a guy that liked to do takedowns like me, you just take everybody down. And I think like in today's world, there's a huge crossover now, because from wrestling, judo, sambo, whatever it is, in terms of maybe even Greco-Roman, I haven't seen too many Greco guys cross over, but the point being is that a lot of these guys, or enough of these guys, have crossed over at like high school levels, collegiate levels, and they've been tremendously successful in the last like 10 years or so. I think that, especially at the highest level, and I think now there's a changing regard. I think that you can't just pull guard anymore, and it's, as like I said, it's a viable option. To pull guard. It's not something I would necessarily want to do. It's not something I like to do unless I had no choice, kind of thing. I'm down like points, and this guy is completely stalling. And now I can't take him down. I'll pull guard. You know, whereas before I absolutely was pig-headed about it. You know, training under Marcus. You know that was our professor, Professor Marcusaurus. There was no pulling guard.
Nope.
Like ever in training. Zero pulling guard.
Zero.
Like, and even if the two guys were like, was a belt test or whatever, and you're fighting, there was nobody pulling guard. Like, it was just, you sometimes would see the worst stand-up attempts, like the shittiest like single legs, and then whoever fell on top of each other, the other person, that was it. Okay, you got the takedown. It was really bad.
It was,
and it was terrible. So that was my experience going in. And I had to take it upon myself to learn how to wrestle properly, learn learn wrestling the tie ups and the engage, because I didn't want to just like nobody was answering the question, like what happens if what happens if I can't take the guy down, like, and then it was just like, oh, you just have to do this, but we're not even training that thing that you're telling me to do. It's just like kind of like an offhand comment, or like, just take him down. Like, that's what we're getting, even from the black belts and brown belts and purple belts. A few of them train judo club like on the weekend for like once a week over a course of a year or two, but they weren't like super proficient at takedowns either.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I remember going to my first tournament, and the only thing I knew was the lapel shake. And I'm like, well, what if I can't spin the guy? And classic. Grab the lapel and shake each other until one of you slips. So there was like no foot sweep, no single leg, no leg trip, nothing. It was just shake him, spin him until he gets on the ground. But the whole game we were taught was fight from the top. Well, you can't really fight from the top if you can't get the guy on the ground. And and going into I think it was the third tournament I was in. Well, you'll remember this well. I went to shake this guy, and the guy was probably 4 inches taller, maybe 5 inches taller than me. We were fighting at 205, but I guarantee you that guy had cut a bunch of weight, because I grabbed his lapel, and as you so generously said, I'm strong as shit. I'm not a weak man. Well, I grabbed this guy, and I shook, and he didn't move an inch, not a millimeter. He looked at me like I was a chew toy. And needless to say, I did not win that particular match. I was outmatched that time. But it just highlighted to me, well, I had nothing else in that arsenal. I had nothing else to work with. But maybe if I knew a foot pick or some sort of, even an arm drag, which I didn't know at the time, anything would have been better than just staring blankly into space going, what do I do now? And that was kind of the background that we came from. Once we were on the ground, we knew where we wanted to go. We had ideas of submissions, although our conceptual sphere of what we wanted to do wasn't that great, to be honest. We knew individual submissions, some transitions. Obviously, we were white belts, so we still do have a lot more to learn. But just when it came to that philosophy of, well, you fight from top, you fight from the mount, and not being able to figure out, well, how do I get from my feet to the ground where I'm in control? Just today, I know I was watching this video, which is kind of how I guess this topic came up for me. And it was a guy, he practiced karate and he went to a jiu-jitsu tournament, and his entire philosophy, his entire concept of going to this tournament was, well, my game plan is basically not to engage, to try and I don't like these videos very much where you try to prove one martial art doesn't work, because most martial arts tend to work in one situation or another. They are situation dependent, in my opinion. Some are more effective in different areas, but I'm not an expert in a lot of martial arts, so I'll leave that there. But his concept was jiu-jitsu doesn't work if you don't engage in jiu-jitsu, right? And his entire concept was, well, I'm just not going to engage. I'm going to go into this tournament, I'm going to stay on the mats, but I'm just not going to engage. And the guy he was up against in the video, don't know what belt level he was. It was a gi tournament. Basically, tried to pull guard, tried 1 foot sweep, but none of that worked. So the only time they actually got engaged was essentially when the head of the video was like, well, I'm going to get disqualified if I don't engage, so I guess I'll let him pull guard and go to top position, right? Mm-hmm. Well, my entire thought process during that was, well, jiu-jitsu does work, but it's about getting you to the ground. And if that fella, his opponent, had been a wrestler previous and could shoot doubles, shoot singles, or Greco-Roman, get under the arms, grab a pick, and like body lock him or something, well, it would have been a total different video, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how it kind of came up for me. And we've been talking about this for a while, like as older guys, getting older, like shooting for doubles. Well, that's kind of hard on the knees. So what do you do? And your answer to this was, well, we should look into Greco-Roman because it's more of the top body that you're trying to affect to bring them to the ground. And I just think that's something that could be trained more in schools.
Yeah. I also think that for this, that's great to do more of the insight, like grappling, like chest to chest, like Greco-Roman, and especially as an older fighter, and also as somebody who started jiu-jitsu late for the first time, or is already older, but they, their knees and their back, it's all banged up. So you single legs, blast doubles, they're nice to look at. Obviously, they got a huge effect. Everybody likes that. You pick someone up and slam them, dump their ass on their head. Everybody likes that. Like, who doesn't, right? It's one of the more exciting things of stand-up, grappling. But the issue is that as you age, you lose your explosive power, you lose your speed, your reflexes first, actually, then your explosive power. But the last thing to really go is your strength. You can be incredibly strong into your mid-50s, even late 50s, and to negate using that strength, it's kind of dumb in my opinion. And to wait till you're really old to develop all these skills, the Greco-Roman skills that can transition into BJJ. I think it's you're doing yourself a disservice, and if the sooner you get on top of that, the better it is for you. Because most people don't like the chest-to-chest type of grappling. They want to be on the outside, going for those blast doubles, or the mid-range where you both are touching each other, which is the range that you need to be the most proficient at. But if you're going against somebody who's equally as talented as you are, but they're faster, stronger, more explosive, they're going to get to those takedowns, they're going to be able to set things up faster, even if you can recognize it. Well, that person's just going to get there. Yeah. And then the tie-ups, the things, a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, you can see two guys clinching each other. The tie-ups are the most boring part of jiu-jitsu, of any type of grappling, right? Especially in jiu-jitsu, because it gets so stalled there, because the tie-ups are so they're so inefficient at it. It's not like where in Greco-Roman or freestyle wrestling, when there's a tie-up, these guys can blast through those tie-ups and get to their setups and to take people down. If you go past the tie-ups, get really comfortable with the chest-to-chest grappling. One, it's easier on body. Two, you still can do spectacular throws, and it's safer. Like, if you fail at that, you're not going to have someone sprawling at you. You're just going to end up, hand fighting again, and you're going to end up in a tie-up again. It's less likely to be sprawled on top of. This is, low risk, high reward comparatively, compared to, the outside style of, wrestling.
Well, this about me. My favorite one is double underhook body lock trip. Because that puts you right in the side. It puts you right in the side mount, which is one of my favorite spots.
It's a dominant position in any form of grappling. Get the double underhooks, get those high arms up high. The guys just at your mercy. Get a body lock, pick your knee up, dump them in their ass, and it's if they can get out of that, like they could do a suplex, they can come over, tie up your underhooks, and they can blast you over their shoulders. But that's not likely, especially in jiu-jitsu. Like it's very unlikely that if you get double underhooks and it's like real high, that your opponent is gonna just like suplex you.
Unless you're
because they're not going. Most guys aren't going to have that skill set, and if you do, it's okay. You learn from it, right? That's a good experience, anyways. But that's a dominant position. Most guys, like I said, they're fighting for the single, and the single in jiu-jitsu is the highest. What's the word? It's the most efficient and the highest percentage takedown. And because the stats in jiu-jitsu is a little different than it is in freestyle, where freestyle you
You're very squared up.
You don't want to worry about the guillotine and stuff. But that's why Greco-Roman's so great, because you're not standing up as high as a judo guy, so you're not going to blast double or you're not susceptible to single leg stuff as much. Where Greco, you're crouched down just a bit more, and I think it just the stance of the Greco-Roman wrestling translates really well to BJJ. Just the stance is about the same, and there's a lot of hand fighting. The best hand fighters in grappling are Greco-Roman guys. They can't go for the legs. It's all waist up. So they have to the hand fighting has to be superior to set everything up.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And as you said, as you age, as we age, like the explosiveness goes down. I think it's Danaher as something like, well, what do you do against somebody who's younger, more athletic, more agile, more explosive? Well, what do you have left? Maybe you're stronger, right? So all you can do is figure out ways to overcome your weaknesses, which is kind of why we're talking about this on this podcast in the first place. Like, there are holes in jiu-jitsu's game in general, right? Jiu-jitsu is a fantastic sport and a fantastic martial arts, but you need to bring in certain other things that are complementary to that, and if you know them, then it just makes everything more efficient. And as we get older, I'm harping on this because I'm feeling old today, but as you get older, you need to bring in those efficiencies so you can do this as long as you can, especially if you want to compete or even if you just want to roll more than once a week, because jiu-jitsu is going to beat you up. For anybody who's listening, we don't sugarcoat it. Jiu-jitsu is not a sport where you get a belt because you did the techniques. It's a sport where you get the belt because you did the work, right? Yeah. So I know there's
basically the most merit base of all the traditional martial arts where you have to wear a gi, and even though we do no gi, it started out with a gi. Where there's a belt system essentially, it's the most merit base of all the martial arts that has a belt system. And not that the other one that they don't have any merit to it, but I'm just saying jiu-jitsu, that black belt is, for the most part, 99% of the time, it's hard earned.
It's legit.
Blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah,
the average is 10 years to get a black belt, and that guy who got the 10 years, that's the average, right? It's not like people think, oh, I did 10 years, I'm gonna get the black belt. No, it's like there are other people that took 15, 18 years of consistently trying to get that black belt. And there's the people, outliers, that came there in 4 years.
Every time I hear that 10-year stat, all I can think of is, man, if I just continued jiu-jitsu, I'd have a black belt by now. But life gets in the way. We both have families.
Yeah, definitely.
I do.
Definitely,
further education. But it's one of those things where it is one of the most merit-based, and I feel like it's one of the least watered-down martial arts that is translated up into North America. Because you can talk about different martial arts and how they've sort of strayed away. My example is going to be Taekwondo in the Olympics, right? it's kind of strayed away from where it came from and what it was meant for, to the point where it's a point-based striking system that they're very good at kicks, maybe not so good at punches, but the actual competition isn't as arduous as it used to be, which means you can get a black belt, but you may not be as ready for a fight.
Yeah, I think the ultimate test in terms of sport, like combat sports, like not street fight, or we're talking about combat sports, is MMA, right? So how well does it translate to mixed martial arts? That's the question, right? So if that's the standard, the gold standard is MMA. Like how well does the art you're learning, the base, your main martial arts, like is this gonna translate to MMA? And for the most part, Taekwondo isn't. Not because it's an inferior martial art. It's because the current system of Taekwondo and karate and kung fu, whatever it is, has been watered down. So that it's like almost like a puppy mill. It's a belt mill, whatever you want to call it, right? It's like people come in, they don't want to see their kids get knocked the fuck out. Like who wants to see their kid getting spinning wheelhouse kick to the fucking face? Lose your eye like Michael Bisping, right? But the thing is, like, you shouldn't be putting kids in martial arts. And first of all, don't force your kids to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to get my oldest kid to do jiu-jitsu. She's really not into it, but she's like, yeah, I want to do kickboxing. She came to me. She's like, I want to do kickboxing. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna force her because. And a lot of parents are like, oh, I want my kid to be ready for the streets, or maybe they don't say out loud, but that's how they're thinking. Like, oh, I'm gonna put them in Taekwondo, and it's like, okay, that's fine, but you need to find a Taekwondo school that's gonna be
hard,
like the old way. Yeah. The 80s and 90s style Taekwondo is, if you go on YouTube and put like 80s Taekwondo, 90s Taekwondo, I do not want to be kicked by those guys. I don't want to be kicked by a Taekwondo guy now, but I'm just saying those guys came to kill. It was not like a point-based system. The guys came
to knock you out.
To knock you the fuck out. Like today, guys do, but like they're happy. Most guys are happy with the point system. And look at the stats. It's really like kind of like point-based karate. It's like one touch and go. But like there are some like Kyokushin. What's that I'm saying around? Like the one that GSP did and like Jerome Labanna did, like Kyokushin karate, where it's like full contact. You can't punch the head, but you can punch and kick to the body, and you can kick to the head. So it's kind of weird. You can like totally kick someone to the head, like as hard as you can, but you can't punch them. But it's a full contact like sport, and like guys get fucked up in Kyokushin karate, and it translates pretty well to kickboxing. Once they get their hands settled, like they learn how to kickbox, or they learn how to box for kickboxing or Muay Thai, they do extremely well in my opinion once they can cross over. But it's not like they had to learn everything. It's like first time they get leg kicked, they're like, oh my god, what is this? They're not like that. That's a traditional martial arts that allows leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks, knees, everything. It's like except punches to the head. So the only thing you need to learn is how to protect yourself and from punches, and how to set up your punches to head. You're fine, because they have wicked body punches. So they have a very small aspect to learn. It's a big thing. It's a big deal because it's like a primary weapon. But it's not like a Taekwondo where you completely negate the hands. And now this version of Taekwondo, today's belt mill version of Taekwondo, is not the same. It's great for, if you become a really good black belt now, it's great for stunt work, and it's great for like acting in general, like that, all that stuff you see on TV shows and movies. I think if you can do all the fancy kicks and the point-based style of Taekwondo now, it's going to lend itself to stunt work if that's what you want to do.
You brought up a good point, though, that I kind of want to circle back on. Is like nobody wants to see their kids get kicked in the head or knocked out, right? And I think that's one reason why Jiu-Jitsu amongst kids is actually more popular, because it's kids' bones are made of rubber, right? Basically. So they're less prone to get injured in the first place. And where do we get injured in jiu-jitsu? Muscles and tendons. You don't really get knocked out. If you do get choked out, you tap. Or if you actually go out, if everybody's doing it right, you wake up 3 seconds later with a tap in the face and a little daze and confused. But Like,
Yeah.
the injuries in
Not happening with
jiu-jitsu,
kids though.
yeah, the injuries in jiu-jitsu just don't seem as devastating to parents as, say, boxing, right? Where that left hook to the side of the face and kid goes to sleep. That's brutal. That is not what you want to see happen to your kid. Or even if you look at football, where they're tackling, they do full contact tackling, and you see the kid's head in the helmet just get pinballed around, right?
Yeah.
But that also, on that note, jiu-jitsu is an effective sport as shown in MMA, right? And you do see some karate guys come up in MMA, and like obviously Machida, big,
He's
one
probably
of
the
the
best
biggest,
example.
probably the best example.
Yeah.
But you do see them come up. So it's not about, like you said, it's not about which one is better. It's just what is effective in that moment, right? So jiu-jitsu has its place on the ground. Wrestling has its place in the takedown and control. Karate, boxing, kickboxing, Thai boxing, they all have their point in the stand-up. But if you are going to go train and you actually want to be able to use this at some point, whether it's in competition, depending on your rules, or if, someone accosts you in a rare but unfortunate circumstance that you have to defend yourself, you want to be able to know that you can handle yourself, and the only way you do that is by training hard. That doesn't mean you have to go so hard that things break, but you need to get to a level of simulation where there might be a time where you think, I'm done. I'm gonna quit in the next 5 seconds because I can't do this for another 3 minutes, and then you learn to push past that moment, because in reality, at the point that someone actually does want to hurt you, or you get into a high level competition, that moment's gonna come probably more than once.
Yeah.
Right? So
For sure.
are you joining a martial art because you just want to train and you want to do some physical activity, or do you want to use it? Or do you want to be able to use it? Do you want to feel competent in using it? And that's a big reason why I joined you at Jiu-Jitsu 20 some odd years ago. And I realized, even though I bought...
20-something years ago.
20-something, isn't it? Maybe
like
17.
Like yeah, around there. So basically,
17.
yeah.
Almost 20. But I knew how to box, and I was okay with my hands. But the second I was put on my back, I will never forget. One of our sparring partners back then, one of our rolling partners, a guy named Elliot, just going, "Hey man, breathe. Remember to breathe. Don't hold your breath while you're on your back." Oh, I can do that. Okay, right?
Yeah.
Stay in the moment. Stay thinking. But
yeah, for sure. Elliot was great. Speaking of Elliot, Elliot, like, if he ever sees this podcast, like, sees us talking, we remember you, Elliot. Like, we fondly remember you, and if we can ever meet up and talk to you again, that'd be great. He was like our little groups, like John Danaher, for sure. He had the same haircut too, shaved head,
shaved bald white guy.
And, he was no physical ability whatsoever. Like, in terms of strength, power, reflexes, it was like basically zero. But in terms of flexibility, it was like a solid 10. But he had to be technical, because, like, we're a lot bigger and stronger than we were back in our early 20s. But even then, we were strong and explosive, and I was like super explosive back then. Like, earlier we talked about blast doubles and stuff. That's all. I was spamming blast doubles in comp. Like, that's how I won. I just like rack up like 20 points to 0.
There was that one tournament, going back to the beginning of our discussion, there was that one tournament where you got put into 2 weight categories. You had to fight back to back to back. And I swear, all you did for 3 fights was doubles, because it worked. And that last fight, you were so exhausted by shooting doubles that
they were calling my name.
Yeah,
they were calling my name. Why it was like 2 minutes into this match. I'm like, so I didn't hear it, but I win, because I got like 3 takedowns and like pass guard once, that kind of thing. And then and then you or Joyce was like, oh, they're calling your name. I'm like, calling my name? What the hell are you talking about? I just finished. Like, I didn't even get a 5-minute break. I literally walked across to the other side of the mat, or whatever, and then I fought like instantly. It was like I was like huffing and puffing. I didn't even get time to drink water.
No.
Okay.
I
It was
think
brutal. It was like the Shark Tank. Like, come on.
I
It's
I
like
think
freaking-
by the time I'd had 2 fights, you'd had like 6, and I was just standing around watching you, going, "Man, there's a lot of people in this category." Because I was always heavier. I was always 205 or 205 plus, right? I was trying to make 205, but cutting weight sucked balls, just monkey balls for me. So
Yeah.
there was only like 4 or 5 guys in my weight class at that belt level anyways. So your weight class always had more people, but this particular tournament,
Yeah, always.
I was just like, there must be 30 people in his weight class because he just keeps going. Keeps like the Energizer Bunny, but then we found out that they tagged you at 155 and 170. So you were in 2 weight categories, and they just kept pinballing you against the majority of the tournament.
I remember that. Like the last, like when we figured it out, it was like, I was like, can I get a 2-minute break? Like they gave me like, okay, they started another match, and just because like basically had to like beg for like a 2-minute break. They gave me 5 minutes at the end, and so I was able to like chug Gatorade, and then I went straight. I remember walking to the third match, the third back-to-back match. I was like burping up like my Gatorade because I just chugged the back, and it was brutal. And then they were like, "Oh, what weight class do you want to be?" I'm like, "Well, who am I fighting now?" It's like, "Oh, it's a weight class above." It was like I was like 10 pounds lighter than everybody. I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll just do that one." It's like I was too tired. Like looking back, like thinking back, I was like, maybe I could have taken the easier route. But I was I didn't win. I only came to third that comp, and that was probably my proudest moment. Just not because. You know, it was nice to medal, but it was the fact that even if I didn't medal, but I went through like so many fights in like a 30-minute period. Like had like 4 or 5 matches in like 30 minutes. It felt like a Shark Tank. That's essentially what it was.
But going back to the way
I think people were feeling bad for me. Like the last guy, I think he was like he felt bad for me because like I walked up to him, I was like gasping for air.
Okay, I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
You make a great talk.
No, man, but going back,
Yeah.
Obviously your conditioning has always been good, but like going back to the way we started this whole conversation, you might not have lasted as long as you did if you didn't know how to shoot doubles or take singles, because they didn't know how to defend it, and you could put them down. I have this vivid memory of you taking this guy down on a double, and he had open guard, and you were too tired to pass, but you just held him there. But you got the points because you took him down, and he was just looking at you like, I don't know what happened. He was just deer in the headlights. I was like, well, at least he gets a 30-second break before he breaks.
I can't remember which match. To be honest, it was a lot of it was like a blur.
Yeah.
It was just a blur. Like I had like little glimpses, like pocket memories of it.
I think in that
I do remember
one,
just taking everybody down like pretty easily, man. And also like not just taking people down, like also reversals too, like technical get-ups, like getting taken down. Like, you know, like it wasn't like I could stop everybody from taking me down. Like a couple of times I got foot swept, so I landed on my ass. And then, you know, because I almost never play like guard, at least not like the only guard I like doing is like half guard. And just because my open guard, my closeout game was so poor, so I end up in half guard so often, especially, you know, rolling with like some of the higher belts like Justin, who's like a fucking freak athlete, 6'2", 200 something pounds, just muscle, and he's a purple belt, and I'm just getting like ragdoll. So I always end up in half guard. But anyways, like, so I just learned how to do technical get ups, and just give up basically, you know, create space, kind of look like I was going for a sweep or takedown. Oh, actually, I would try. Usually would fail. Then I would just get back up. And then when I got back up, more times than not, I would just take them back down. And then I would pass. And then they'll get up and I'll take them back down.
Yeah, I was
a takedown machine.
It was that tournament as well where I was using that exact same strategy. If I got taken down for whatever reason, I would try to reverse it and then take them down. Right, so just stand up, take them down, and try to get some control or get in a side mount or half guard at that point. but it's one of those things where those moments are of struggle lead you to learn where your game is lacking. And
Yeah,
I
sure.
just feel like still in jiu-jitsu, because of the way that people are training, the way that people are taught to train, you listen to some guys online talk about, well, this is the takedown that's I've won tournaments with, and this is my favorite takedown or whatever. And you look at it and you go, that's great, but what if somebody knows how to counter that? What do? Do you have 3, 4 in the backup? Or what if they just say, I'm not doing the takedown game with you today. We're just not going to play. We're going to keep space. Like, what do you do then? And that,
Like it's stalling, yeah. Like
yeah, where they just stall.
Doing just enough to not get penalized and stuff. But
Yeah.
with that said, people hear this us talking now. They just think like, oh, this is submission grappling. You should, regardless if you're on your back on top, you should, the primary goal is to get a submission. Yeah, obviously
Sure.
we were trying to get submissions. We're fucking piss poor at it. The thing was, it's like I think what we're trying to get is that as you go on your journey through jiu-jitsu, it's not just about the submissions. The submission is the end goal. Like obviously, I would just love to tap everybody out. I would like to heel hook everybody to death. Or in my case, I'm terrible at leg locks. We're going to work on that.
Yeah.
But my thing is like I love to hunt the head. I love anything in the front headlock position. I think you and me both, or we basically have the same style of jiu-jitsu. We get to the front headlock and we just try to strangle you, or and if it doesn't work, we'll end up on top anyways. And this is where we want, right? And that's where we thrive. But on your way to becoming a great jiu-jitsu practitioner, you might be really bad at submissions for a long time. So why not also at the same time learn how to be extremely good at positioning, extremely good at taking people down, extremely good at getting back up? Because you're going to get really frustrated. It's going to be long, for the most part, for most people, you're not going to be a Gordon Ryan. You're not going to be like Craig Jones. You're not going to learn super quick and become this freak of nature. You might, but you don't make rules from the exception, right? And generally, you're going to struggle for a long, long time. And on that path of struggle, it will be easier for yourself and to expedite yourself to get to the black belt is to learn all the things that are not cool, like positioning, like guard passing. Imagine if you always can take people down, or basically 70% of the time you're on top. And you can pass guard every time. So you have negated so much of the danger, which is basically being in between your opponent's legs. So now they have to, get up. And so maybe you get swept, maybe whatever it is, or you get taken down, and now you work on guard retention, you work on escapes. You become basically untappable and unmanageable on the ground to keep you to be kept in side mount, mount, whatever it is, people take your back. You're just impossible to have your back taken, all that stuff. You're going to be a threat because while they gas themselves up trying to get points on you just to get position, they might get advantage. They might not even get the points on you because they need to hold you there for 3 seconds. If you're constantly moving, you're going to become so much better. And I think when it goes back to the whole stand-up thing. The great part about stand-up, like Greco-Roman, freestyle, wrestling, whatever it is, you get penalized for stalling. You have to press action. You get in trouble for that in that sport. Wrestling doesn't afford you to just stall all day long. They changed the rules a long time ago so that there'd be more action involved, and that has made wrestling, the crossover to jiu-jitsu even stronger, because wrestlers are tough motherfuckers and they keep on going. People think, oh, they just take people down and lay on them. This is not 1992, okay? In the UFC 1 and 2, where guys just are just trying to wrestle fuck you. Wrestlers now, or people who know how to wrestle, they come in and they will destroy you. You just look at Bo Nickel. He didn't know a lick of jiu-jitsu, but except from what he watched on fucking UFC pay-per-view, and then goes to his first jiu-jitsu class, and he's tapping everybody out except the black belt And if they did he basically had a stalemate with the instructor at wherever jiu-jitsu place he went to, because he's a like a 2-time Hodge winner, like a 3-time national champion or whatever it is, Olympic hopeful at one point, and he's a beast, and it's because he has wrestling and his base is strong. He can take you down. If he gets surprisingly taken down, he'll get back up. He dictates the fight, and then if you are a good wrestler, you're not coming in as a white belt. You are not a white belt. There is no collegiate wrestler coming into jiu-jitsu on day one as a white belt. They're like easily a blue belt in terms of a lot of things, not everything, but like in terms of positioning, in terms of like the stand-up game, they're already superior to whoever they're going against, unless this guy also is a great wrestler themselves. But for the most part, they're going to have a huge advantage. And I think that even if you don't have a background in judo, some sort of wrestling, whatever it is, sambo, I think it's like really important that you take time to either go to a school that trains that, like go to a judo only school once a week even, and learn to be good with one damn judo move. One throw. Be a master at one throw. We talked about, like, earlier you touched upon saying that, well, what happens if you they stop that one throw or one takedown. But the thing is, I like to push back on that, is that at least you have that, right? You could be a brown belt on that. Like, for the most part, like most people who do jiu-jitsu don't have that. You see the high level guys, they can take people down. 90% of them have great takedowns, or at least, like, say decent to really good takedowns. That's why they're successful, because they have added that to their game, because they dictate when the fight's going to be. Even the guys who pull guard can take people down. That's the thing. You see these guys who are great in their guards, they pull guard all the time. They can toss you on your ass too, just that they're going against another guy who's much better than them at that. But if you want to go against them and you got your black belt and your takedowns are pretty mediocre, that guy who is just known for guard pulling is going to take you down probably, because he's got his stat is, better than yours regardless, right? So that's what I think the point we're trying to make today. One of the points we're trying to make today is that stand-up is super important. So even if you only do jiu-jitsu twice a week, you should once a week at least, twice a week, go to a judo club. Find even a rec freestyle wrestling place where you learn like mid-level wrestling, like like sophomore high school wrestling. If you get to the level of a decent high school wrestler, and that's as high as you ever get, trust me, that is going to be infinitely better than 50%, 80% of the people who do jiu-jitsu. Because most people, because of the rule sets, they don't need to have takedowns actually, there's no real incentive for the general practitioner of jiu-jitsu who doesn't really want to compete, or kind of competes for fun and has actually no chance to ever medal, even at a local comp, like ever. They can just pull guard, because the rules, you don't get penalized for not knowing takedowns. And, in terms of the like the points and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And
it's just like I was saying before, like, yeah, no, it's all good. You're right that at least know one thing you're good at, whether it's a judo throw, a single leg take, an arm drag into a body lock, something. Anything is better than nothing. But just always remember that if you are competing, or even if you're not, jiu-jitsu is still a points based fighting system. Like, you do get points in comp, and one of those points is takedown. So you can either give that up by pulling guard, or you can, if you have that takedown and you've got it on your opponent, you can get a couple of points early on and put yourself in a good position. So I think my entire point with this conversation was just like, don't ignore it, because it's part of it. It's just not. It just seems to get left out a lot in the conversation, right? But it's something that you should still be considering, because as you progress, as you move forward, it's going to become evident whether you've thought about it, whether you've practiced it, whether you can do something or you can't.
Yeah, and just on that note, I think that most people eventually do stand up. They realize they need it, but I think it will do you such a great service if you to do it straight away. As as a white belt, like even though you're doing jiu-jitsu, you go to jiu-jitsu academy, you love it, it's a great school, but the takedowns within a few weeks, a couple months, like if they're training takedowns consistently, you realize like, wow, we're not doing takedowns. Like you should take the onus on yourself to go find a judo school if you can afford it. We're talking about like perfect scenarios here, like if you can afford it and you've got the time, all that stuff, because if you're kids like us, it's like it's hard enough to do jiu-jitsu like a couple times a week, right? So like now you're adding more. So we're talking about the perfect scenario, right? Like you have disposable income, you have the time. Please go to a judo club, go to even an MMA gym where they teach takedowns in the curriculum. That will help you. Even the MMA like setups and stuff for their takedowns, it's gonna be a bit different, but at least you can modify it just purely for jiu-jitsu. And who knows, you might like MMA and that'll be your next thing. And the thing is, like, I don't think it's as big as an issue nowadays. Not even close. Whereas it was when we first started in the early 2000s. Because it was like, dude, man, it was easy doing takedowns. Because the first year, I was just doing no-gi. There was a year and a half. And I wasn't doing gi. So, like, barely anybody did no-gi back then. Not like today. So I finally was convinced to put on the pajamas and do gi, which I hated, like every second of it. I hate the gi. But I did it for 2 more years, and then I was just like, oh, like, I just started taking people down. That was it, because I was trying to play the whole, like, traditional style of jiu-jitsu, like the whole, the collar, the sleeve, the snap down. That wasn't working, and then I realized I'm just gonna start shooting doubles and singles because I actually practice it. Speaking of taking onus, was only going to jiu-jitsu once or twice a week. Okay, once or twice a week, but I would train takedowns once or twice a week on my own outside of jiu-jitsu. And then when I went to a comp, I just started taking people down. That was all it took back then. Now I think it's gonna take a lot more than that. I know it's gonna take a lot more than that, but certainly, even if you were to do it once or twice a week now, you will still set yourself up for success.
No, for sure. I mean, after that tournament where I couldn't even move the dude, I knew you were practicing outside of the jiu-jitsu class, the takedowns, and so I started practicing with you a little bit. But that goes back to the point, if you don't have the perfect scenario where you can do jiu-jitsu twice a week and then go do judo once a week, go do wrestling in an MMA gym once a week, that's a lot of time, a lot of money. What you can do is maybe find a couple of like-minded people within your gym and practice that on your own. There's tutorials, there's videos. Maybe there's one person there who actually does know takedowns. Maybe they were a wrestler for a little bit or something, did some judo for a while. But, like, just find a way to incorporate because it's going to serve you long term. Even if you're not the best at the takedowns and you know that the other guy's better than you and you can pull guard like in that scenario, but it's better to have it and not need it than have no idea and stare at the deer in the headlights like I did against that dude who had obviously been a wrestler a lot longer than I'd been doing jiu-jitsu and just get caught basically pants down, ass up, and he's having a party and you're having not a good time. Right? Just to find a way to incorporate that, and it'll serve you long term both in jiu-jitsu and in life, because wrestlers are fucking hard people, and there's a reason that they rise to the top of MMA list because they know how to grind through pain.
Yeah. I would say that any stand-up grappling, they're tough guys. Like judo guys are like tough as fuck. Like people don't give them enough credit. Like that is a hard fucking sport.
When someone
to throw another human being or to take down a human being that doesn't want to be thrown, and you're both fucking freak athletes, that is people who don't grapple, they do jiu-jitsu, they're like dying. Now, if they try wrestling and they never wrestled before against someone who knows how to wrestle, that's like suplex city, man. They're not gonna, or you're gonna be thrown on your ass. Like jiu-jitsu, you actually have to apply submissions to hurt someone.
Yeah.
But a wrestler, they suplex you, they do a double leg, and they decide to just slam you on the floor, or you get uchimata
If somebody
judo guy
gets
on concrete, it's game over. Like you're gonna die. Like, and if you don't, you're gonna get ground pound to death.
You will experience, even if you've done jiu-jitsu before for a long time, you will experience fear again the first time somebody who knows anything about wrestling takes your back standing up, grabs you around your diaphragm, squeezes, lifts you up off the floor, and hits you with the earth. It's terrifying. It sucks. It's the worst thing. It's one of the worst feelings. You feel like a helpless child. You can't breathe, and then the ground hits you, and you just wake up. And you're like, oh, please, no more. And then, if they are a good wrestler, they haven't let go. They're gonna pick you up and ragdoll you around the mat until the best thing you can do is just, please let me go.
Yeah, people forget the sport of like wrestling and judo is control. Like once they get you down there, it's like they go control your ass. Like you're very unlikely getting back up. If you do, you're going right back down.
Yeah, you're going right back down. And you see it. You see it when you see somebody who's outmatched on their feet by somebody who is. Where I've escaped. I can take a second, and then they're up in the air and they're back on the mat, and life is just hell for the next 5 minutes.
Exhausting it is. Like people don't realize. Even I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys who just do. Like you start my guard, start your guard, like
which is good practice.
How it's on, especially if you don't compete that way. So if I go to comp and like I'm just gonna pull guard, and then you got this guy who's on top of you, takes you down, is tenacious, and just like fucking mauling you, like fucking you in jiu-jitsu. You're just like now you're suffocating. Now you feel like you're drowning.
Yeah, man.
Especially when you got the fucking pajamas on
and it's hot. For those who don't understand the difference, or maybe you've never done jiu-jitsu, like it's the difference between hitting the heavy bag, hitting the pads, and sparring. You are so much more tired in sparring than you will ever be hitting the heavy bag and working pads. Like that's exhausting enough, but once you put another human being and the adrenaline's in there and you're trying to swing and they're moving, ducking, and you're recalibrating, and it's just a whole nother version of tired that you have to get used to. And so get used to it now.
I would say like for people who don't want to fight, and I think it's a great analogy, is that like who haven't fought and they think about doing jiu-jitsu, and say they know some grappling. It's like swimming in the pool compared to swimming out in the ocean.
Yeah.
Like that's a different beast right there. That's the thing when you go against a guy who knows how to take you down, or and it's like you're drowning. Like you feel like drowning, and if you don't know how to do any grappling, you're gonna drown. You're gonna die.
You're gonna get caught.
That's a great thing.
There's gonna be a rip current there, take you out to sea and drown your ass. On that note, I think that's all we got for today, huh?
All right. That was a good talk. It was a good topic.
For sure. Stay tuned for more of the podcast coming. That's Oldhammer Podcast. Oldhammer Combat Club. My name is Sam.
My name is Gordon.
It's been a pleasure talking to y'all. Subscribe, like, all that stuff, and we'll see you in the next one. Appreciate you.
All right. Happy training. Take care.